Can you hear me? There we go. I had forgot to turn on my microphone. Welcome. I am Debra Wallace, licensed marriage and family therapist, and I am doing this pause and process in a nutshell because, as a collective humanity, we have gone through a pandemic. We have currently two wars. We have a major change happening in America. And for me, trauma, I specialize in trauma. Trauma is anything that happens too fast, too much, too soon for our nervous system, and then having no safe place to process, express, and make sense of it. And so this is my gift to show up Tuesdays and Thursdays to provide role model, provide that space, a safe space, and to role model what that might look like. And again, it's going to look different for everybody. So I'm throwing out a lot of different things, and you take what works for you today. So today I'm actually going to talk about transgenerational trauma. I'm going to use an example. I dyed my hair purple. I'm going to share a story about my mother, as my mom recently died, which actually gives me the freedom to now speak. And I'm going to talk more about that. Um, and that's why I'm a therapist for many reasons. I often joke that I became a therapist because I would be in therapy the rest of my life. So I might as well pay the money and become a therapist so I can use the tools whenever I want and share the tools. And I love learning. And so and I also actually I saw this card. This A friend gave this to me, and I actually love this quote. It says, "Be messy and complicated and afraid and show up anyways." And that is from Glennon Doyle. If you have not read any of her books, she has an amazing podcast as well. But when you grow up in dysfunctional families, which sadly more than not have, there's a lot of chaos that can happen internally. And again, there's lots of range in how things can affect us. For me, it showed up more in a lot of messiness. And from a very young age, I just always felt different and that I did not fit in. And for so long, and I internalized a lot of negative beliefs about myself that I thought were to be true. So I'm actually going to also walk us through a truth compass exercise today, which will be weaved into the breathing, because I'm going to talk. Usually, the format I'm kind of banking on is, of course, breathe, pay attention right now while I'm talking. I kind of do a little bit more talking for the first 15 minutes. And then the last 15 minutes, I definitely walk us through an exercise. But I always try to start with some deep breathing, anyways. So thank you for joining me. And I invite you to take a breath, breathing in, exhale. And gently scan from head to toe. Notice any thoughts, feelings, sensations, images, distractions. There's no right or wrong in this space. And actually, on my Facebook page early this morning, um, I shared an image of, it was like a body. I share things all the time. I love sharing information. I love empowering people. Um, but I shared an image that it was like a person trying to lay down, and then the skeleton inside of them was moving all around. Even though your body, you're trying so hard to lay still, so much is happening internally. And it was actually from a page that supports complex PTSD, which, if you're not familiar with the term, it actually, unfortunately, is not a formal diagnosis yet. It's been worked. Bessel van der Kolk is working hard in trying to get that into there. However, it is real. And I know when I identified, probably was like a decade ago, when I discovered that, hey, that describes me to a T. And really complex, the difference between PTSD and complex PTSD is PTSD is usually to a single event, like a fire, a tornado. I mean, and war, which can expand longer periods. Of course, but it's usually more of a single episode. Whereas complex PT happens kind of more in relationships. It's like these, as I mentioned, something that's happening too much, too fast, too soon, that's overwhelming for your nervous system, that keeps happening over and over and over in your life. And it's even more harmful and detrimental and causes more disruption and dysfunction in the development of your psyche when it happens definitely under the ages of 7, because 0 to 6, 7 is when our brain is doing the most development. And yet, the good news is our brains are plastic. The word is plasticity. We can grow and learn and rewire throughout our lives, which is what I want to focus on and what I want to show that there's actually simple, easy ways to do that. So if you look at all my episodes, I'm sharing so much knowledge. I share so many authors because I love reading, and I show up saying I don't know everything, and I love learning. So um, that's that. So what I was going to talk a little bit more about with complex PTSD and transgenerational trauma, which is trauma that gets passed on from generation to generation. So hundreds of years ago, 10 years ago, it's stuff that happened to our ancestors and our family lineage. If it does not get processed, will keep playing out until somebody in that family line processes it. Um, and that's another reason why I'm stressing the importance of pausing and um, starting to listen to your mind, your body, your spirit, and your nervous system so that you can pick up the cues and see the signals to let you know. So last week I shared a page from my book about some signals. Um, and then today I showed my page about when we feel scared and angry because unfortunately what happens um, when we're having big emotions reactions today, I think some people could think, oh, you're overreacting, go over it, that's there's just too much going on, what's going on there, that you're making that up, or it's too much, you're being too sensitive. I've heard that a lot in my life, where what's actually happening is our body has memory, and like I said, generational trauma, we have memory that goes on. Like, I don't know if you know about genetics, but actually, like the eggs for women are actually like in your like you're in your grandmother. Like, if you think about that, that's just like it's it's so amazing how that happens, because girls are born with all their eggs. So if you just think about that, so when you're inside your mother, you already have all your eggs to go on. So it's just unbelievable how I love human development. I could go on. Um, but so what that's why what's going on to the mother, what's happening to the mother, I share a lot of resources. The first 3 years of life creates the blueprint for all future relationships. So what's the mom living through as she's creating cortisol, stress hormones, is going to impact the development of that baby, which will then affect that child forever, which is why we need to take care of our mothers. um, and raising families, fathers too. Anyways, I we fathers need so much more emotional support as well, as they have also their own pressures. But what happens um, is that gets passed on, and so I've been aware of this, and even though I know this, I have still continued patterns. A lot of patterns. I'll write a book about this, but I'm going to talk about my. So I dyed my hair. I've always wanted to dye my hair. Purple's my favorite color. But what's so funny is I was 40 years old. Actually, no, I was maybe 42. And up to then had never dyed my hair before because my mother, that was a no-no. She's a beautician. And although she would dye her hair, but for me growing up, that was not okay. That was something that was not allowed. And it just wasn't worth it. My mom had enough stress. I wasn't going to mess up anything else. Um, and so it was interesting. When my daughter was like 11 or 12, she expressed interest in wanting to dye her hair. And I was like, yeah, cool, like go for it. But healthy wise, and she was smart and she didn't want to just jump and do the research. I homeschooled my kids. So we do the research, pros and cons, what's safe, what's not safe. I am a fan of doing your own research and seeing what resonates your own truth, which is why I'm going to focus on the truth exercise. But um, it was fascinating because I was going, these last 5 years or so of my life have been insane. And I was actually having to move out of the home that we'd been in for 5 years. We're going to go travel in an RV. There were a lot of things going on behind the scenes that were very stressful. And I had this box of red hair dye. And we actually bought it for my daughter, but she didn't feel safe with it. She's like, oh, we did the research. She's like, a red permanent, we're not doing that. And I was like, going to pack it away. I don't throw things away. If I spent money on it, I don't throw things away. I think that comes from the depression area, that transgenerational trauma, is my grandparents grew up in depression. But I don't throw things away. I don't waste things. So I was like, you know what? And I was like, I was celebrating how cool it was that I let my daughter dye her hair, and then I was like, wait a minute, I I want to dye my hair. I've never dyed my hair, so I dyed my hair red. And then I went through a red phase for a while. But when I showed, my mom was not happy. And when she first saw it, her face was just like, ugh. And then I ended up coming to take care of her, and I was still enjoying the red. And she's still just like, her face would just be like mortified. Like, I mean, when she first saw it, just mortified. And then I connected the dots. She'd always told me this story. I'd heard the story. I was like my mom's confidant. She told me many stories, way too many stories. That's why I have trauma. Too much too soon. Um, but she shared with me that her mom had dyed her hair with henna red and actually had an allergic reaction. And this, she was a little girl when this happened. I think 5 or 6, and so she saw her mom blow up. You know, she had to go to the hospital. So for my mom, that red hair was a reminder of her mom almost dying. And I remember I said that out to, I've been, when I finally connected the dots and I said that out loud, my mom's like, oh my gosh, you're right. I never thought about that way. And then from there on, she was able to open up and be a little bit softer to my red hair. So, but then I went natural again. It was funny. After I worked through that, I was like, oh, I want to be my natural. But lately, which I have been natural lately, but I've kind of always wanted purple's my favorite color, and so Bed Bath and Beyond was going on sale. I actually bought the hair dye for my daughter. For not had an opportunity to give it to her, so I thought, I have it still. We'll do it. So here we go. But it was interesting. My mom's fears. My mom is very fear based, and makes sense. Again, I'm going to explain. Terrified, afraid of everything, afraid of. She'd have a saying, "My man or a mouse, pass the cheese." So I'm extremely fear based. She's fear based, but so her fears. So I wanted to dye my hair, but I had. She would also tell me. She goes, What are your clients going to think of you?" Oh my gosh, I couldn't do that because I had talked to her that I was wanting to do these other colors. I said, I don't care. If people judge me for the color of my hair, that's on them. I'm good. But it was interesting. I started to have some new clients, and I had a new client set up this weekend. And the day that I was going to do it, I'm like, my mom's kind of creeping in my head. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to postpone. I'll wait. I'll I'll see the clients and then do it the next day. And it's hilarious. I believe in synchronicity, which is signs, things matching up. And the funniest thing, this client had purple all over the show. Like, it was such a sign to me. And actually, I didn't even hit it then because I'm present and attuned with them at front. And it only came to me, actually, I think it was this morning. I was like, oh my gosh, I think that was a sign that again, that wasn't my truth. My truth is I don't care what you think of me. If I have my hair purple and you don't like it, I don't care. I'm not hurting anybody. So that is my funny transgenerational trauma story. And I bet my mom is laughing and getting a good laugh out of that. Because and she would still say, she'd probably say, "No, I like your hair. I love your blonde hair." That's what she'd say. But I know she loved me, and she wanted me happy and to be my best self. So, which is another reason actually why I'm showing up and doing this podcast. Because another thing about the trauma that I had gone through was my mom. There's a lot of shame for anyone. There's a lot of shame when a lot of bad things happen, when there's skeletons in the closet. And even my mom, I was going to go talk on a radio show, and it wasn't going to be about me. It was about another topic. She didn't know that. I was saying, "Oh, Mom, you're talking on the radio show." She's like, "Don't you talk about us? Don't you dare! You will kill me if you will talk about us and our family." And I got defensive because I was like, "Don't you tell me what to do." And we got in a little bit of a fight, and it was when that happened, because again, I was like, how dare she? Here I am taking care of her, and I can't speak my truth. And again, I understand. I totally understand where but it's been my whole life has been, worrying about her life and her well-being and her welfare. And so although that was painful to see, I have done enough healing in my life that I was able to say, hey, that's not okay. Yes, your fears are valid. I get you don't want these scary things to come out. They are bad. They're not good. But first off, that wasn't even what I was going to do. So trust me that I will handle things with care and love. But either way, I mean, it wasn't quite worth it. So most of my life, I decided I was not going to speak about my. I mean, what's unfair is it's also my life that I haven't been able to talk about. But she said, once she dies, then I'm free to do what I want to do. So here I am, handling it with grace and love and compassion. So that's that story. I'm now going to walk us into some breathing and in this truth exercise that I teach everyone who works with me or I lead. I actually first learned it. Um, I'm trained in Gottman, and so I was doing actually a Gottman training for affair recovery. And Julie Gottman had actually did this exercise. I don't know, it was for ages ago when I did this, but so I'm gonna walk you through it. So first, though, let's take a few deep breaths. Breathe in through your nose. Long exhale through your mouth. And I know I had you breathe a little bit, and you may notice while I was telling my story, you may notice different sensations. You may have had your own memories come up. Some things might have made you uncomfortable. Like I said, where's that thing? I'm showing up. Although I'm a therapist, I'm showing up messy, complicated, afraid. Because this is where I'm at. And this is how I'm showing up. So um, I'm trusting the process of this. Thank you for joining. So, again, breathing into your nose. If you're feeling any tension, really imagine breathing it in, filling up, and blowing out. Sometimes you can visualize the things that are stressing you. I've talked in other talks about creating a container, coming up with a coping thought. But anyway, just blow that out. Right now, you are here, carving out time to pause and nurture your mind, body, and spirit with some oxygen, some new information that may hopefully lead to new growth and integration. I weave in a lot of works from Dan Siegel, what healthy integration looks like. Faces, I talked about that in my last talk. Polyvagal theory, when we're feeling safe and connected, we're in ventral parasympathetic versus when we're in stress states, which is the image, when we're feeling a threat come in, which is real, perceived, then we become all these things. So just notice if you're feeling any feelings, sensations. And then I'll be quiet for a few moments. I'm noticing my shoulders are clenching or slumping over, so I'm going to raise them up. Sometimes it can also be like you can tense your shoulders and then drop up. I'm going to do that again. That's why it's really different. I'm just sharing lots of different things we can do. You listen to your body, and then drop up. If you feel comfortable actually making sound when you exhale, activate the ventral vagus nerve. I mean the vagus nerve, which sends a message to your nervous system that you are indeed safe and in control. Although there may be many things going around in and around you that do not feel that way. But this is why breathing is important, pausing to breathe. And as I mentioned, that image I shared, that's for people who actually have a lot of buildup of things that aren't quite working out. There's just too much going on. Like, even though you're trying to pause, it may be hard. Your mind may wander. You may feel like, what's the point of this? All these different parts are going to come out as you pause, which is why so many people don't make time to do it. But for me, it's actually more reason why you need to do it. It's about creating a relationship with yourself, learning how to regulate and soothe yourself so that you can be calm and access our innate wisdom that we are all born with, whole, full, wise. All right, so for this truth compass exercise, I want you to think of something that's actually not true. So, like for me, I love chocolate. I eat chocolate every day. um, so I'm actually going to think of So what you want to say is when you think about something that is true, I want you now to say the opposite. So like I'm going to say to myself in my head or aloud, I'm going to say it aloud, but you can just say it in your head and say it a few times. What's not true. So I'm going to say, I hate chocolate. I hate chocolate. I hate chocolate. And I'm listening to so literally in my gut, I feel a little like sick, like disgusted, like that's not like, why are you saying that? Say it again. I hate chocolate. Yeah, I just really feel it in my gut. It's just kind of this little ball tensing up right in the center of my gut. I hate chocolate. And then I have that voice. It's like, why are you saying that? You know that's not true. And if I keep doing it, like it gets tenser, it gets tighter as I'm thinking it. Um, and then, so just notice what's coming up for you. And then I want you to say the truth. So I'm going to say, I love chocolate. I love chocolate. Mm. And as you say your truth, I want you to notice any subtle, I'm going to say subtle shifts in your body, your mind, your body, your spirit. And for me, you probably even heard me. I instantly was like, oh, a sigh of relief. That's the truth. I can suddenly smell and taste chocolate. And what I love about this is like I can really start feeling the salvation happen, because our mind does not know the difference between real or imagination. That's why when threats are coming, it can be perceived or real. It believes what you tell it. And this is why complex trauma and generational trauma is so tricky. Because even though I hope you felt some relief, usually you'll get more relief in this when it's a clear truth. You'll notice this bigger shift. You know, Yet when I practice it, so I usually have clients do this so you'll get this bigger shift. You'll feel that ease, that relief. That's my truth. Like it's not about right or wrong. We all have different life lived experience. There are multiple realities. It's so important to connect to your truth, what feels true to you, because this is your path, this is your life, how you're going to move through it. And so you'll often feel that bigger shift with that, which most often happens is then I'll walk you through a scenario. So like for me, I've had to make the big decision of whether I'm going to stay in America or go to New Zealand. Now that's huge. Like, um, and I won't go permanently, but either way, look, will I keep going course to try to find my next place to live in America, or will I go to my next course um, or shall I go to New Zealand, regroup? I haven't been back there for over a year and a half. I miss it. My daughter's there. Like, there's many reasons why I miss New Zealand, but my mother recently passed, and there's a lot to unwrap. I got to deal with all her things, but I have a life here. So I run that through my body. So what I did is you run that through any scenario you have. If you're running through a scenario, you're going to play it out. So I run through, okay, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to keep looking for apartments, going to keep going through this process. And you run it through and you notice how it lands. And for me, there's a lot of variables that are barriers that are coming up and other variables of bad things that have happened to me in the past that are affecting things. And so like I'm kind of like keep running into walls right now. And so like I've recently been diagnosed with some health issues. I don't have health insurance. So it's like the state of affairs is, as a therapist, is alarming for me. There's trauma happening unbelievably, and we already had enough to deal with. And services to children, especially in families under 5, are at threat, and that's when our brain needs the most. Like a lot's happening. So like as I run through that truth compass exercise, my body staying is like I'm just running. It's just a lot of there's more of that tension in my body. Whereas when I play through, okay, I'm gonna get a plane ticket, go to New Zealand for a month or so, and I feel lightness. Um, Now, in this case, it was a little more clear, like my truth exercises. But what I find in a lot of situations, like I have a lot. I'm a human. I've got some other scenarios where, when I run through the different scenarios, it's a little more conflicting. And so that's why I say subtle. You often just want to go with the one that feels a little bit lighter, even if it's just a little more subtle. That's the one that you want to go to. And the other interesting paradox, I love paradoxes. I think there's so many paradoxes, is that I think when we're making decisions, we often think it's like black and white. Okay, I'm doing this or I'm doing that. And what I found, what often plays out, it's like, yes, that next step is a path, that step. Yet often that next step may not be the ultimate outcome where you're meant to be, but you needed to take that step to get to see that other opportunity. And so that one that seems so clear and you took that step, it still may not pan out how you wish or desired, yet it may open the door to something that you could not have gotten, or maybe you would, but would have been more suffering. Um, that's what I've experienced. So I use this truth exercise. I teach it to kids, to adults, anyone who works with me. So I wanted to share it with you. Um, there's also the kinesiology. There's also some other like muscle testing. If you go to a functional doctor, they'll do muscle testing, which if you have two people, um, that one's due. And then there's another one where you use your fingers and to test where you play through the scenarios and you run it through. And if when your body, when you're in your truth, you won't break apart. There'll be strength. Whereas if you're running through the scenario or doing something that's not your truth, playing it out, it'll break apart. And then so there's one where you do with another person where you hold out your arm and someone is pushing on your arm while you're holding the truth. And there's more steps to that. That's just me in a nutshell. So I'll share a link to the kinesiology testing. But this is the truth compass exercise that I like to do, and I encourage others to do. Because again, I'm a fan of therapy. I think there's a huge stigma. I have lots of videos, positive reframe, and one is addressing stigma therapy. I think it'd be important for everyone to go at least once in their life. And again, shop around. Don't just go to the first one. It's important that you feel your body feels safe and comfortable. And that's why I offer free consultations, 20 minutes, because you want to feel that out. It's a huge commitment. It's giant. But it's a safe place to process and make sense of things so that you can get the data and connect to your heart song, your truth, and identify your values and intentions so that you can use those values to make your decisions and move forward so that you can have optimal functioning, healthy well-being, have supportive, nurturing relationships. Um, and that's the value of pausing and processing. Uh, is it clears the way. I've been showing this in my talks. I'll pull it out again. This is clear because it's been sitting. This is a calm, regulated nervous system. Whereas something happens that is a perceived threat. It activates I have dirt in here and glitter. There are such things as glimmers. I also focus on that. Glimmers are the good things that help our body feel light. So there's glitter, but it also represents thoughts, feelings, sensations. I use different colors, but the dirt kind of symbolizes all the heaviness, the things we have not processed, the gunk that just keeps getting activated. So actually, I'll be wrapping up here, but even it takes on average 20 to 30 minutes for a nervous system to get calm and regulated. And I use the word calm, but I do want to also caution calm and regulated doesn't always mean like you're not having mixed emotions. Like it's just, there's just it's this ease that's in your nervous system, but you may still be having conflicting thoughts and feelings. Um, and and that's why I also like to use connected, because it's also being connected, knowing that we can have this range of thoughts and feelings that may not all be true. We have this objectivity, and that's why I promote mindfulness, because mindfulness is the practice of being in the present moment with without judgment and with curiosity and compassion. And it's with that we can gain, we can see things from a different perspective. And that's why I also weave in a lot of compassion exercises as well. So I encourage you, I have a playlist for my previous pause and processes, um, just sharing lots of nuggets on human development, trauma, parenting, and walking you through an exercise to bring some pause and process into your life for more pleasure and peace, sustainable pleasure and peace. Because it's not just one time, it's often going to be an exercise of doing this. It's like strengthening a new muscle. Actually, I just used the metaphor yesterday for the first time of, if you've ever used physical therapy, I love physical therapy. But like they give you specific, they know the target area you're working on. They give you specific exercises that you need to do 3 to 4 times a day to strengthen that. And the outcomes comes from you doing it consistently. And I gave the metaphor that that is what I do psychologically, emotionally, and relationally. And that is what I help empower and teach people to do on their own, because showing up with me or any therapist every week, just as long as you feel safe and comfortable, the therapeutic rapport is actually the best indicator of a good outcome. So that's why it's okay, it's not me. There's plenty of people that match your energy, that are good for you, that are a good fit. Um, but this, it's nice to have someone help guide you and hold space and have you mirror and process things. Yet your growth, your product, your outcome, your well-being is going to come from what you do and show up for yourself every day. And I'm going to share this again. I just love, again, I recommend Glennon Doyle's work. Be messy and complicated and afraid, and show up anyways. Because healing, Brene Brown's work also, vulnerability is where a lot of healing and growth and connection, it's like come together. And that's where we can do a lot of rewiring and healing and integration happens. So thank you for listening. I will be here on Thursday. I think Thursday I'm going to do a loving kindness meditation. And I'm going to use my pets as an example of another story for that. So thank you. Take wonderful care. Oh, just notice, look at, it's still cloudy, but, and every nervous system is different. So notice where you're at. And I encourage you to weave in more deep breathing, pausing, putting your hand on your heart, stepping outside. Your glimmers are things that bring light and ease and peace to your nervous system, and they are often like these little things. So pay attention, open your eyes to those things that enlighten you, bring joy and peace and love to your mind, body, spirit, and nervous system. Take wonderful care.